So I recently got through finishing the book, The President is Missing, co-written by James Patterson, one of my favorite authors, and former President Bill Clinton. So you know that having President Clinton's name on there is going to create some controversy, and it certainly affected the way that I perceived that book before I read it. Did it change the way I read the book and finished the book? I'll discuss that next. So before I started reading The President is Missing, I really wanted to see what some of the reviews were going to be, because I knew that with President Clinton being attached to it as a co-author of the book, that some people were going to be very upset. A lot of conservatives were not going to like the book instantly, just seeing President Clinton's name attached to it. And I was right, because a lot of the reviews were very, very negative. And I followed James Patterson on Facebook, and anytime that he mentioned that book, and there was tremendous PR leading up to the release of this book, and even after the release of this book. And that book was everywhere. You could not walk into very many stores without not only seeing that book there, but featured very, very prominently. And this includes big box stores such as your Walmarts or your Meijer if you're here in Michigan. And it was everywhere. You would see that book. And so I didn't buy it right away because I was kind of curious to see what some of the reactions were going to be. I knew it was a very long book, and I sometimes pick my long books very carefully, and so I wanted to see what some of the reviews were. But it was a challenge because the reviews for The President is Missing a lot of them were very negative, but the overwhelming amount, if not almost exclusively, the negative reviews were people that were just anti-Bill Clinton, or anti-Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton, or just anti-Hillary Clinton, just flat anti-Clinton. And so I kept reading through those, but I was trying to sift through some of those to see if there was something more that people didn't like about the book that I should be paying attention to maybe shape whether or not I actually do want to read this book. I had very little doubt that I wanted to read the book because it just sounded like a very interesting story. And so I did end up buying the book. I bought the Kindle version of the book and had it on my Kindle, and it sat there for a while. I had a lot of other books that I was catching up on, but I wanted to grab it. I think there might have been a good deal when I bought it at the time. And so I had it on my Kindle for a while, and then I finally got around to reading it a couple of months ago. And I really enjoyed it. I'm a very slow reader sometimes, and sometimes a very fast reader. But when it's something that I'm really trying to process, and there's a deeper plot, sometimes I'll read it a little bit slower, and I'll go back and reread parts a little bit just to make sure that I'm digesting it the right way and processing it the right way. But it really was a story that hooked me right from the beginning. There's a lot of very procedural stuff that people that are inside a presidency would understand a little bit better, and so there's no doubt that James Patterson, with help from Bill Clinton, took a lot of time to write that. It was very well researched, and again, some of the procedural stuff was just like, wow, like you really felt like you were in the White House at times, that you felt like you were right there on the president's staff as you were reading parts of the book and getting an idea, a feel for what it's like to be in the president's shoes, making decisions, handling egos, and handling a vice president, and handling your staff, and handling the politics, and handling a split Congress, and all the things that go into, Supreme Court justices, defending the country, terrorism, plots from within, and people that you have to keep an eye on. It was really interesting to follow the book, and I really enjoyed it. It was, for being a fairly long book, it was very well paced, and it was easy to kind of keep up with the pace of the story. And I never felt like it was dragging a little bit. I mean, you can always look at it and say, well, he could have maybe trimmed like 100 pages off of it. He probably could have. But at the same time, it was really a book where you felt like you were right there, that you could really understand what was going on inside the presidency, and you got a feel for the politics, and you got a feel for the personalities, and the character development was pretty good. You could really understand what people were, what motivated them, and it was a good old-fashioned mystery in a lot of ways, coming right down to the end, and you kind of got a feel for what was going to happen probably 3/4 of the way through the book, you kind of got a feeling for where it was going to go, or mostly where it was going to go. And but yet it still helped you to finish it. It kept my attention really right through to the end. And it was a really good read. I really enjoyed it. They threw a couple of misdirections at you there to catch you slipping a little bit. But if you were really paying attention, it was still easy to follow and not get too sidetracked or not get knocked off your stride too much. But I really highly recommend it. Don't let the politics of some of the people who are criticizing it deter you from reading that book. If you're any kind of a James Patterson fan, you're going to really like this particular book, giving you kind of an inside portrait of, or letting you see things through the lens of people inside the White House as a good mystery unfolds. And it really is something that you're going to enjoy. And so don't let the haters, so to speak, deter you from what could be a very enjoyable book. So The President is Missing, highly recommended. James Patterson and Bill Clinton. There was a lot of hype before that book came out, and as I said, right after that book came out, and I now see why that book was hyped as much as it was. It was a book that I thought really stood up to the hype, and who knows, we might see it someday as a film, maybe, maybe not. If it is a film someday, I think it would be a very good one, and I would certainly take an opportunity to watch it, and I think you should too, because if it's anywhere close to as good as the book was, then I think it'll be a very, very good film. So The President is Missing by Bill Clinton and James Patterson, highly recommend it. Urge you to check it out and read it. It'll be worth your time.